Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner, and I'm going to do a wrap-up summary of what I read in April, and I got a lot read in April. As you guys know, I mentioned several times I did the Owls Magical Readathon Part 1, and I am so glad I did that. It was fun, and it gave me a way to get through a lot of books. And I did stick to, you guys know, the career path I chose was Magi Zoologist. So there were 4 main books that I absolutely had to read. And I did try to, again, include some of the classes I don't absolutely have to have, but I'm sure it would be a good idea if this is a real life thing and not just a readathon. But I knew I probably wouldn't get through all of them anyway, especially some of the books I chose. So, first thing I decided to read was the one for the potions class, the potions prompt, which is reading a one under 150 page book. And I chose this graphic novel, which actually I just realized after the fact. It's way over 100, but you know what? I don't care, and it's not like G or the Ministry of Magic is going to come after me for that, so I'm counting it as passing. So this is volume 4, and because I don't read graphic novels that much, and as of right now, I'm kind of just whenever I go, which is usually when Terry comes, during the summer, when I look at graphic novels, I usually pick ones that are I've been having her check out the ones that are about my favorite characters, which in this case are the Joker. Although to be fair, I kind of just happen to like the actor's performance in the show Gotham. But the Joker, Penguin, and Riddler. I really like those 3 characters because they're very interesting characters for. I like when villains are a little bit more complex and a little on the crazy side. In this one, the Riddler approaches Joker and wants to work together to defeat Batman, to stop Batman. But unfortunately, the Joker is not someone who likes working with other people. I mean, the only person he's ever worked with probably is Harley Quinn, and even that does not go well. That doesn't always go well. So he ends up shooting Riddler, but Riddler, of course, comic book logic, Riddler survives. And there's an all-out war between them, and the other villains choose sides, and Batman's kind of put in the middle, and because him and Commissioner Gordon are tired of all this, because there are a lot of casualties, Batman eventually decides to have a bit of a, there's a word wants them to come together and have a truce. But, well, actually, he does it as Bruce Wayne. Because I know, of course, you guys know he doesn't know Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same person. He does it as Bruce Wayne, and I'm sure you know how that's gonna go. And this was fun, it has that, the Gotham universe especially with these 2 particular characters, they have a very interesting, very morbid sense of humor. And it's very dark, and it's you guys know that the Joker would laugh at if you got shot in the face, and you would find that funny. And this is really it felt very like a film noir, like those old black and white sepia tone detective stories. Which Batman is a detective, and just the way the story was narrated to us, and just the vibes I got, mixed with, of course, the usual elements of a superhero comic book. So if you are a fan of Joker, Riddler, definitely one to check out. and it was fun. It was great. I don't know how much more of the graphic novels I'm gonna pursue, but I mean, I definitely want to. It's just not it's not my first thing I go to when I think of like reading. And my only issue with graphic novels is that, it goes by so fast because you're just reading. I feel like I'm just zipping through it and not really, I mean, I get the story, but it's just like, it's not as, I'm not taking my time with it because all I need to do is like read the little bits of dialogue and description and like description bubbles and then look at the pictures. And, so it feels like I just go through it a lot quicker, which is, in this case, was a good thing, but, I was also kind of weirded out by there's one character that was a bit, like, let me see if I can find his name. Kite Man. There's one character that was like, he's called one super villain that was called Kite Man. And it was like, really? What? I mean, I remember when Gotham first started and I decided to go check out all the different types of villains that could potentially be on the show, and it was like, some of the names were just like, really? That's the best you can do? But then there are a lot of villains in the Batman Gotham universe, so, it's kind of hard to come up with something new and original and creative that's really intimidating or scary or whatever, like. And that's probably why there's certain villains that we see all the time on screen, like the Joker and Penguin and Riddler and Mr. Freeze and all those guys and Catwoman, like, because they're original. They were original when they were first created. They were different. And actually, as far as Gotham goes, the last season there were so many villains I would have loved to have seen that I heard about that would come to the last season. But of course, because the last season was cut short because the show ended up being canceled. Although I did hear that Fox was going to give them and they were going to allow them to do the whole 22 episode season, but then for some reason they decided, no, we'll just stick to the limited, and I don't know if that's true. I'm just going by what I heard. But it just was a bit, a disappointment because there were so many characters they could have explored villain-wise, like technically Echo, she's supposed to be like their version of Harley Quinn, and they also had the ventriloquist in there, and there's one that was like the little boy with his Mama, or I don't remember what the villain was called, but or little kid and mom or something, and if you guys are a fan of comics, you can tell me the Batman universe. So I remember the last season of Gotham was a bit disappointing as far as that goes. But anyway, but yeah, Kite Man is like, I mean, he had a good motivation, and I guess it was the best he could come up with, and it kind of has to do with what happened and why he became Kite Man in the first place. His name is in reference to something having to do with when it happened and why it happened. So, like, so yeah, I get it, but at the same time, I can't help but think, it's kind of lame. Kite Man, I mean, what do you do? What powers do you have? Or in this case, I guess in this universe, they don't really have powers. I mean, only a few of them actually have powers. Which I guess is why maybe they think he could get away with it, because not all the villains really have any superpowers. It's not like the Marvel universe, or like Wonder Woman or Superman, where the characters have like there's only a few of them actually, like Poison Ivy, and then Freeze. He kind of, well, I don't know if he has power, like if his power, but he just has technology where he can freeze things and stuff like that. As you can see, I'm still kind of out of the loop because I didn't read graphic novels. But like I said, I had a good time with this. It was fun, and maybe I like to pursue more comics. but it's gonna take time. I'm not gonna do it like all at once. It will just happen like over time. Okay, so next, let's see. I'm gonna call it my list to my document. Okay, so after that one, okay, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so the next book applies to the charms prompt, which is read a book that has white on the cover. It's referring to the Luminous Maximus charm, which is basically like making your wand into a flashlight. In the third movie, Harry uses it to do his in the book too, Harry uses that to do his homework because, of course, in his household he can't do his Hogwarts homework while he's at the Dursleys. He has to do it alone in the privacy of his own room when they're all asleep because, of course, they are afraid of magic and they don't want him to. So the book I decided to go with is I was debating about continuing with the series because I did enjoy the first book. I had a good time with it, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep going with it, and because it had been a long time. So finally I decided, you know what, I still have this. Let me go ahead and I can use that for this prompt because most of the cover is white, with the exception of in the middle where you have our main character Mia, and she's has her shadow surrounding her, and she's wearing a red cape and so black uniform and stuff. But other than that, it's mostly white. And this is the sequel to Nevernight, where our main character Mia, is going to finally be able to fulfill her plan to get revenge for her father and her mother. And it was a very interesting, and they go in a new direction with it because, like, instead of Mia is no longer at the boarding school for assassins anymore, she's out in the real world. And they kind of go with a gladiator type setting where she comes up with this plan so she can get close to her target and becomes a sort of a slave and gladiator type. And which makes me think that J. Kristoff had a lot of Roman and Spanish influence because some of it reminds me of Spain a little bit, but mostly reminds me of Italy and Roma and stuff like that, especially with the gladiator aspect, which I thought was cool. I liked the characters. I had a good time with this one, and I definitely ship Mia and what is her name? I can't remember her name. Ashlyn. I definitely ship them together. Although when I was watching Sam's review, Sam from Thoughts of Tomes' review on it, her non-spoiler review, she talked about how she had seen a couple of things. She doesn't know this for sure, so it's not a spoiler. But she thinks she might have seen some fan art where there's a bit of a certain relationship that like a polyamorous relationship going on with some of the characters. So I think that's the right word. So that was interesting. So that I'm curious about that, if she's gonna be right or not about that. But this is great. A lot of familiar characters reappeared in this one, not just Ash. And like we got to explore more of the world. Like in the first book, we were just at the school, and we do see the desert and get like little hints of more of the world beyond, but we don't actually really get to explore the world beyond the school that she goes to. So this was really cool. I'm glad I read it, and like Sam, I'm actually a fan of the footnotes. I like the footnotes because it adds some depth, and it's a way to explore and expand the world without like making the book too long, without putting unnecessary information in certain chapters, in the book that is like in the middle, like in the just not having to put like in the middle of the story, like just include some, it's a way for him to give us this information without it being like in the middle of the story, without it all of a sudden like, you have a character doing something and then all of a sudden like telling us these kinds of facts. And you don't even have to read the footnotes. It's just, I think it does add some stuff, but you don't have to read them to enjoy the story. So I'm probably gonna get the second book at some point, and maybe wait until it comes, which I don't think it's out yet. Actually, I don't think it comes out until the summer. So, which I don't know I don't know what's gonna happen with this whole virus and everything. Like, I'm still not even sure what's gonna happen with my convention if I'm still going to my convention. I mean, Terry and I even talked about this because she still kind of wants to come up, but I'm thinking, well, if the virus gets, comes back, has a surge of coming back because people aren't patient and can't seem to, they're too anxious and want to break free, and apparently they don't care about, they don't realize that we're not done yet. The virus is still going on. We're not over the hump yet. So if more people do that, there's a chance that this virus could come back with a vengeance, and then we'll be once again stuck inside and not be going to and my convention might be canceled. If that is the case, then Terry maybe shouldn't come up at all, because if that's the case. So who knows? Like, as I keep saying, I'm taking it day by day. Okay, so the next, after that one, I read Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And this is it's about two kingdoms. One of them has usurped the other, and our main character is the decoy to the Condessa of the other kingdom, and they are currently living as refugees and in hiding because, protect themselves from the king who has usurped her crown. And he shows up and decides he wants the Condessa to be his wife. He wants to marry her, wants to form a marriage alliance. And our decoy princess, Kazim, let me see, Zima. So it is Zima. In Goodreads, I said it wrong. I spelled it wrong. Zima is forced to, because of course the princess, they believe that Zima is the princess. She must go in Princess Catalina's place, because of course, we can't risk Catalina. They cannot risk Catalina's life by going to marry this king. And, and of course when she gets there, things are horrible for her. The king is an abusive jerk towards her. All the other people are hostile to her. And she has to find a way to communicate with the real princess. And in this world, our characters will have different powers. And in the case of Zima and Catalina's people, they worship the moon, and so their powers, if they have powers, they come from the moonlight. Like, Catalina herself can read the stars. They mentioned that some people can control the tides, because of course there's gravity and the moon working together that controls the tides in the ocean. And then in this other kingdom, I think their powers, if they have powers, they have to do with the sun. Because they worship the sun. So sorry, I have when I was just watching on pause, and now it's stopped because apparently I can't stay on pause too long. And our Zima has the power to weave moonlight into tapestries, and she's able to send messages by doing that, and with the help of the spies that are in the city where the usurper lives. And she also discovers that she has a bit more power. Her power can do a lot more than just making tapestries really pretty as well, which I think was really cool, and which is a really cool concept. And kind of cute and kind of adorable too. There is a bit of romance. There's a hate to love romance in this one. And it's a really fun. I like Zima's, I did like Zima's character, but she's not anything special. Just like a lot of YA heroines, you know, strong and feisty, but like not in, you know, a little bit sassy sometimes. And you know, when I was this month, I did notice that I'm reading a lot of books that have to do with social injustice, and which I talked about. I think not my last. I think it was the last update I gave you guys, and you know, and one of the videos I did talk about how I'm kind of tired of seeing. I would like to every once in a while see a more passive lead character. I mean, I know eventually that characters become strong and confident and stuff like that, um, but just I want to see a character that starts out as passive and like, you know, a little more girly girl or something. I don't know. Some like they all seem to be the same in YA. Like they all seem to be feisty and hot tempered and, you know, put their foot in their mouth kind of personalities. You know, and very snarky, which I loved. I still love it. It's just it would be nice to see something different. So, oh, and another plus about this is it has a little bit of Bolivian culture. It's not just you know, British culture or Scottish or Irish culture. It's a different country. So next, let's see. Next, what did I read after that one? Let's see. Oh, okay. The next book I read, I don't have a physical copy of it. I listened to this on audiobook via my phone, and that is On Writing, a Memoir of the Craft by Stephen King. And I decided and that one, I forgot to tell you, this one applies to the Magical Creatures prompt, the Care Magical Creatures prompt, which is read a book with a beak on the cover. And as you can see, there's a beak. There's one right there. They're kind of small, but it still is on there, so I'm not even counting it. Okay, so where was it? Okay, so oh yeah, I don't. So memoir of my early. I'm just gonna call it memoir of my early years. Memoir of the Craft by Stephen King. It's basically talking about his experience with writing and how he got to where he is today and how he's written so many books and his experiences that inspired his writing. And, you know, and of course, and he talks in the last sections when he talks about more technical aspects of writing and how to get an agent and all that. And, you know, and of course he tells you what most, you know, writers say, which is, you know, just keep at it. There's no magic to writing. You just aren't, you know, to perfecting the craft or becoming a good, you just have to keep practicing. There's no secret, you know, it's just, you just gotta practice like anything else. Like, whether it's writing or a musical instrument or singing or dancing or painting, you just gotta keep practicing. And you'll slowly get better, which unfortunately I am not very good at practicing. Although I like practicing writing over practicing playing an instrument when I did take piano and violin lessons. That did not go well, obviously. What I like about this, you know, I definitely think I like memoirs because they're very personable and they're usually, and you know, they're not as long because they don't cover the person's whole life. They just cover a part of their life. And because it's a memoir, so it's from that person, the author's perspective. It's their story of their aspect of that life. So it provides a very interesting, you know, it's a very enjoyable read because you're not bogged down by facts, and the way they tell it is a very much more entertaining way. And now, granted, so far I've only listened to a couple memoirs, and maybe it was just that particular person. Like, there's, you know, this one was an author, and he's known, you know, he has a very interesting very entertaining personality. And then the other one was Julie Andrews, and she's an actress. And again, her personality is very interesting. And then you have and then another one was one about a little boy that has autism or Asperger's, although now it's just autism. It's not a separate thing. Or, I mean, it is, and it is and it isn't. It's just considered autism. And he's a little kid, and he was a kid, so so of course he just a lot of little kids have very interesting personalities as well. Like he was like a teenage boy, early teens. So it was just so I think that's so I don't know if all memoirs are like that. I assume they are but it probably depends on the the author's personality. But this one, you definitely, it reminded me of his fiction work just by the tone and the way he told things and told stories about his past and how they kind of inspired his work. He had some very entertaining, very fun stories, and he was just very honest and very blunt. And he wasn't. I never felt like he was being condescending or anything. I just felt like he was just giving you the facts and telling you, suggesting some advice. He does, but saying, you don't have to take it, but I would definitely recommend considering it. And it was very fun. It was kind of fun to read his how he talks about the craft, and and it was always, it was never boring to me. I mean, even during the whole technical, when he talks about the technical stuff, like getting an agent and the grammar and all that stuff, and it was, the way he told it was always fun and very amusing. So that was that one, and then after that one, let's see, double check. Oh, no, I hate it. Next, I read, I technically say I finished, because I didn't read these in this specific order. I mean, I did with the first few, but I did start kind of reading them all at once. Is The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. Oh, and I decided to count the memoir of the on writing as for I think it's arithmancy, which is reading a book that has nothing to do with your favorite genre, that's different from your favorite genre, like a genre you don't read that much. And I don't read nonfiction that much. I'm kind of just getting into it. And my theory about nonfiction is, unless you really just love nonfiction, just, I feel like you need to read, find what you're passionate about when it comes to nonfiction. Because nonfiction can be kind of dry, and I'm sorry to say, at times boring. So it depends on the topic itself. It definitely has to, because I don't think, unless you're a student, I don't think you're going to read a nonfiction just for fun if it's not a topic you're interested in. Okay, so The Merciful Crow applies for the prompt of, what prompt was this for? Oh, for herbology prompt. And I guess it would apply to the Mermish, language learning. I don't know what it's called. The seminar where you learn Mermish, mermaid language. Because that one also which is herbology. And the prompt is read a book starting with M, although for a lot of people it looked like an I. So merciful. So in this one, the world is divided into caste systems. You have the phoenixes, which are the royals, or the most powerful ones. You have the crows are all the way at the bottom, and our main character is a crow. And they don't have any magic powers, although they lord over the dead, and they can take the teeth of the other caste and use their powers. So you have things like peacocks, which are they say the birthright is glamour, so I think they're swans, they're like the courtesans and stuff like that. And then you have the doves. The birthright is artistry. Hawk, another main character. They are like the soldiers. Cranes, vultures, gulls, pigeons, and sparrows. Basically, the world is divided into like different caste systems that are inspired by birds. And like I said, our main character is a crow, and then you have, and she and her dad, like there's this plague going on where the crows are not affected, but everyone else is infected, and it looks like the prince and his main guard have been affected, and her dad, they escort her dad, and who she's training to take her dad's place when he's gone. Wait, he's not her father, biological father. He's her mentor. And then you have the other people, their other group. And they escort the bodies of the prince and his main guard. But then it turns out that our main character finds out that Fee finds out that the prince and his guard are not dead, that they tricked him and they made a deal with her dad. With her mentor. He wanted to call him her dad because she calls him Pa, but he's not actually her dad. They make a deal with him that because they suspect that the prince's stepmom, who's a swan, is trying to kill him so she can take the throne. And so the prince, let me see if I can get with the names. Prince Jasamir and his guard Tavin, they make a deal with Fee, and she's like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna just, I'm not gonna make this easy for you, and you're going to have us help. You're gonna make sure we are protected by your guards, by the hawks, and then we'll help you. And reluctantly, the prince agrees to this deal, and so they start traveling to go to the prince's true allies. And it is a rough road ahead, and there's a little bit of romance in there with Fee and Tavin, which is really cute and very sweet. There's a lot of, again, we're talking social injustice here. Like, Fee experiences a lot of social injustice in the world because she's a crow, and Jasamir does not seem to understand that because he's like, well, that's just how they are. This is who you are. It's like, it's not a big deal. He doesn't see how unfair and how unequal, how, like, unjust it really is for Fee and her people. He just like, well, that's just how it is. This is who you're meant to be. And I also get that in the next book. I ended up listening to an audiobook, which was Red Queen. But I will get to that in a minute. This was really great, really fun. It's not like wow or anything, but it was still enjoyable. I liked it personally. I know a lot of people, not everybody loved it, but I enjoyed it. I thought the caste system was really cool. It kind of reminded me of a book that I did end up DNFing, and that is Girls of Paper and Fire, with the whole caste system thing. I thought that was really cool, and I find that so interesting to read. Like, it's obviously a bad system, but it's also a very interesting system because it adds a lot of, interesting drama and, looking at the different, the social injustices of the world and examining, the contrast between the upper class people and the lower class people and differences how they look at each other. Because, of course, a lot of these books, especially in YA, you kind of see that both sides kind of learn and realize the other one's not evil or anything. They just don't understand each other. Some of the upper class are like, I don't give a crap, and I don't care about what you want, and they're aware, they just don't care. But then there always is that main character that actually sees, this sees the suffering, ends up seeing throughout the story the suffering of the main character, and starts to actually realize, okay, this system sucks and is messed up. But then our main character, the main character that's part of the lower class, realizes, well, not all the upper class are bad. Some of them are actually good, and they just don't understand what they're doing is messed up. And if they're willing to listen and try to make things better and change things, which the problem is a lot of times these characters don't realize, some of the characters don't realize that change does not happen overnight. You can be angry all you want and fight all you want, and but it won't change overnight. It doesn't just instantly happen. In a lot of the books that I've read so far, they're learning that there's gonna be bloodshed, there's gonna be wars. It's not gonna be easy, and not everyone's gonna be as willing to accept the changes, because it's very hard for people to accept change, especially when they're spoiled and treated. If they're not part of the group that's treated poorly and unfairly, they're so used to being like spoiled and treated like we're awesome and everything. And I've been watching, I think I mentioned this earlier, I'm watching Beauty and the Beast, and now that I'm thinking about it, that has it a little bit too, because it's a prince, and then, a peasant girl, Belle's a peasant, and then the prince is a prince, so he's part of the upper crust, he's part of the royal family, and he is so entitled, and what gets him cursed in the first place is because he acts like he's entitled, and he's a spoiled brat, and selfish and mean. He's a bully in the beginning, all because, of course, they don't seem in, of course, he doesn't get the message that it's not about the rose itself, it's about what that shows. The fact that he rejected this old woman because she was ugly and just all she could give him was a rose. So it's like, yeah, it's not about the rose, not about the literal rose. It's about the fact that all because she couldn't give you more, that she was ugly, that you rejected her. But anyway, I literally just thought about that. But it's a really fun story. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of YA tropes and cliches that other people could point out, but I had a good time with it, and I'm looking forward to the sequel, which I think this is just going to be a duology. So, The Faithless Hawk is coming out, although like I said a few minutes ago, with what is going on in the world, who knows if these books will come out. I mean, you can still buy them online, so you just can't buy them at the store. So I don't know, maybe they'll just first send them online, and then eventually people will hopefully be able to leave their homes again. Although last I heard, at least in our state, we're going to find out by May 8th what's going to happen. Maybe by some miracle things will be alright, and they'll find a way to combat the virus, just like they have the flu shot. So, I think the next one is Red Queen. Let me just double check. Okay, yep. The next book I finished was Red Queen, and I don't have that one. So what I did when I went on the Libby app, that's what I have, which I just realized the downside of the Libby app is it's limited to what it has. Because I was trying to, like I just said, I've been watching Beauty and the Beast, and I know the guy, Dan Stevens, the actor who plays Prince / the Beast, I believe he narrated one of the Charles Dickens novels, and he actually also played Charles Dickens himself in the movie that came out last year. I think it was last year, or it might have been 2018. The Man Who Invented Christmas, where it's about the writing of Christmas Carol. And that's, of course, conveniently, that's the only one they have on Libby. Or at least it's the only one of access to me. Because I think it depends on what's available at your library. And then there's an actor from The Hobbit, who also, Thorin Oakenshield, the actor who plays Thorin, also narrates one of the Dickens novels, I believe. And I want that because their voices are very sexy. But like I said, of course they only had A Christmas Carol, which is his most famous work. And who wants to listen to Christmas Carol during the springtime? I don't want to listen to Christmas Carol in the springtime where it's really warm and I'm, stuck in the house and, But so anyway, other than that, I listened to Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, and I thought it was good. I enjoyed it when I listened to it. Although I did attempt to listen to the second one, but then the first 5 minutes of it, I was like, I'm not feeling this. So I ended up returning it. I don't know if I could borrow it again. I mean, I don't know why I have this weird fear that they wouldn't let me borrow something I already borrowed. But it's basically, you have the world divided by reds and silvers. The reds are the poor people, the lower class, and the silvers are the rich people that are really powerful. They each have different X-Men-esque type powers because of their silver blood. And our main character is a red named Mare, and she one day ends up meeting this noble named Cal, and he, after learning about how her life basically sucks, he gets her a job in the palace. Because, of course, he knows that when she turns 18, that she'll have to become a soldier. And, of course, soldiers' life are very short-lived. And so he gets her the job in the palace, and then she finds out he's the crown prince during this special ceremony where they pick the new queen in waiting, the woman who will marry Cal. And, they have this whole arena-esque demonstration where each of them shows off their powers, and somehow Mare, I don't remember what led to it, but she ends up revealing that she has powers, which reds are not supposed to have powers. Their power has to do with lightning. And so Cal's parents realize that they have to hide, they cannot reveal that this girl is a red. So they come up with she ends up staying at the palace, and they come up with this whole storyline of that she's the daughter of a general, and that somehow she ended up being raised in one of the red communities, but she's actually a silver. And she ends up, they arrange her to marry the prince's younger son, Maven, who has I think his power is to do with shadows or something. And of course there's female rivalry with Mare and the woman who ends up getting chosen to marry Cal. There's a lot of cool powers, I feel like, and I kind of like the idea of silver blood and red blood. I think that's very interesting, and like I said, it's another one that has to do with social justice. And Mare is kind of put in a position where she feels very conflicted, because she actually starts to like Cal and Maven. She still does not like the queen or the king. She can't stand them, or Cal's fiance, but she starts to be it's a bit of a love triangle, but she starts to like both of them. And just about her experience in the palace and all the political intrigue and how she can't trust anybody. And then she starts to realize that something is going on here. And she gets help from this mysterious tutor who happens to be Cal and Maven's uncle. And because he is the brother of the first queen, and he starts helping her learn how to control her powers and understand and survive in this world. So I thought it was very interesting. I know that a lot of people complain about it having a lot of tropes and cliches, but it was still kind of fun, And like I said, I liked the cool powers that all the different characters had. And of course, Mare was just like a lot of YA heroines where she was very feisty and hot-tempered and would say the wrong thing and very snarky and sarcastic, but at the same time likable. And you kind of feel sorry, and she's carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. And I mean, I definitely see where people get the whole Hunger Games feeling with it, because it does have Hunger Games vibe. It's obviously a different story, but it does have a Hunger Games feel to it. And I mean, she even has a little sister, who's perfect and a better daughter to their parents. To their, a more pleasing daughter to her mom and dad, because of course she's a disappointment because she's a thief and all that kind of stuff. But it was kind of interesting to see the contrast between Mare and the life of the royals, like see the difference, start to explore it. And like I said, she starts, and again, she kind of sees that the princes are not as bad as they seem. I mean, they're still a little clueless and a little like Cal every time she talks about like how she feels like they should change things, and the way the Reds are treated is unfair and messed up. He's like, well, that's just the way they are. That's just the way that things are. But there is one scene where he does get to meet her family and he begins to understand. But he also says there's the cost for change is too high because a lot of people will die in the process. And there is also this concept of a rebel group that are trying to fight back the Scarlet Guard, and they're a bit terrorist. They act like terrorists and anarchists in the story, and causing trouble, and it's just interesting to look at the Reds versus the Silvers. And one of the things I do like about this kind of story, that even though we've seen it before, it's so kind of fun to look at, to see the contrast between the two types of societies and communities. And even though I don't like reading about war, I do like reading about books where there's a rebellion and character, and there's kind of a war between the higher and the uppers and the lower different groups. And, the whole, like, the rivalry in the war, which rivalry is putting it nicely. But yeah, it's very interesting. And for some reason, like I said, I just didn't feel the second book. I mean, it was okay, but I don't know, maybe I just wasn't in the mood for that kind of story, because I jumped into it right after, and I was just in the mood for something else. And that's when I ended up picking the last book that I read, that I had just finished the other night. So anyway, after that one, let's see, what was it? After I listened to Finish That Red Queen, I went back to reading what's the next one? Oh, okay. No, stop. So after that one, I continued with this book, The Exiled Queen, the second book in the Seven Realms series. It picks up where the first one left off. With both our main characters, they are forced on the run and go into hiding. They both end up going to the same place, but different schools. They both end up in Odin's Fort. I really like the whole school setting. There was the Mistwork School, which is the magic school where Han goes, and then you have the military academy, where Reza goes. And I kind of like that, because it was kind of cool to see her character going to a military school instead of just going to, a lot of the characters wanted her to go to the temple school where she could live a peaceful life and live in peace hiding and learn the typical feminine tools that she would need. And she's like, I've already done that. I want to learn to be a good and strong leader, not just the silly little girl that sits and looks pretty and makes babies and provides and is the moral compass for the kingdom. She actually wants to be able to fight and defend her kingdom and protect and do what's right for the people. Which I love Reza for that. I love her character, that she's not she doesn't want to be a passive queen. She wants to do more. But she also has this conflict that if she, becomes queen, she'll take the throne from her mom. And so it gives her an interesting conflict, because she loves her mother, and she doesn't want to usurp her mother. She doesn't want to take the throne, but unfortunately, in this world, some people support her over her mother, and her mother is just not seen as a good leader. And it puts her in a awkward situation, because she loves her mother. But she's starting to realize that they're right. Her mom is not a good leader, and she's being too influenced by Micah Bay, or not Micah's son. I can't remember his father's name. His father, she's being influenced by him, who he's a wizard. And I read this book for that prompt. For the prompt of History of Magic, which is read a book with a witch or wizard in it. Oh, and Red Queen, I don't know if I could find any of the prompts. I would have to look that up, see if I could apply it, but I don't think I can. And this was also, was also a book I need to finish. But there are wizards in this. Like, some of our characters are wizards. And they're kind of advisors and protectors to the queens of the Grey Wolf line. And, like, it looks like Ray's mother is being influenced by, her own wizard. And he's corrupting her. In fact, in the first book, they try to arrange for her to marry Micah Bayer, who's a wizard, but it's not right for you to marry a wizard. You need to, it's hard to, I can't remember, why, but it's not a good idea to marry. I mean, I don't know. I think it has something to do with their wizard's powers, and they don't want wizards to be in power. And, they would rather the women in this line marry people of the clans, which are inspired by Native Americans, because it's safer and they're not power hungry and they don't have power and it wouldn't threaten the Grey Wolf line. But of course, Ray's is not in love with any of the guys from the clan. She's in love with, first of all, she's in love with her own personal guard who became her protector, Aemon, who is he's the son of the general who's bonded to her mom, and she's also, and then of course there's a little bit of romance going on between, or at least between her and Han as well. And he's a wizard. We find he ends up being it turns out he's a wizard. And he also might be connected to the bad guy, the main overall looming shadow that looms over this country, this world. Which is the Demon King, which is that's what the first book's title refers to, the Demon King. We also, like I said, this is another book with interesting side characters. I like Dancer's character. Kat Tyburn kind of gets on my nerves sometimes. She's that typical hot-tempered, feisty girl, and I think she liked Holland at one point. She has feelings for him. And she's part of his little community of, of the street thugs and stuff like that, and sometimes she just got on my nerves, and her stubbornness and being like, I don't want to be this way, I guess Amon's not a side character, he's, I guess, more of a secondary character. I'm trying to think of the headmaster of Race's school. I liked him. I did not like I do not trust the headmaster of the school that Han and Dancer go to. I don't think you're supposed to trust her anyway. And there's a character that Han meets later in the book that I have suspicions that he might be. I have a theory about who he really is. I don't know if I'm correct, but it is very interesting that they introduced this character. So I'm wondering if he is this other character. Let's see. I also thought the whole dream system was the dream world magic system was really cool. It kind of reminded me of a magic system that is going to be introduced in the Wheel of Time series that I have not gone. I think I have gone to that part in the first book, but we don't know what it is yet. Maybe it was mentioned, I don't remember, but I've already heard about it because, Daniel Green and other people. I think that's really cool. It's just kind of, I'm guessing it's like a soft magic system. Like, it would be considered a soft magic system. I just had it again. There's something else. Oh, and there is, again, this another book that has a little bit of social injustice aspects because people are prejudiced against the clans. They see them as savages and wild. And there's this one scene where Reza is in one of her classes with a teacher that already doesn't like her, and she doesn't like him in return. And he's kind of like the Bayer family's kind of got him wrapped around their little fingers. and especially the Fiona Bear, who likes Han, has a bit of a crush on him, and so he is giving this lecture about the clans, and him and all the other students are like, oh, they're savages, and oh, they go hunting naked, and blah, blah, blah. And Reza, who, of course, her father is a clan leader, and there was another girl in the class who's I think her mom was like a doctor for the clans. And they're like, no, that's not how they are. You don't know these people. And, of course, they're like, dismiss Reza and the other girl. Like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just And, of course, what I love is the headmaster comes in and he's like, okay, so how many of you stand up if you've actually spent some time with the clans? And, of course, Reza and the other girl are the only ones who stand up. And he's like, okay. He's like, there you go. You cannot say, you can't rely on these stupid rumors about these people. You don't know them. You never spend any time with them. You're just going by what people say. It's, which is, what? I love that moment where Reza was like, especially, and like where the headmaster basically defends Reza and the other girl. It's like, in their beliefs. Because he's actually a nice guy. At first I was concerned about him when Reza first meets him. Like, he was gonna make problems for Reza and give her a hard time because she's a girl and blah, blah, blah. But he didn't. He was interested in what she was capable of and believed her more capable than she realizes. And his approach to her when she first meets him, I think it was a way for him to test the waters and want to make sure she was serious about this. And she generally wasn't just hiding here, but she actually wanted to attend the school because, because sexist views do kind of get in the way, but he was willing to, consider, give her a chance and give her the benefit of the doubt. And it's proved fruitful for him because he realized that she is willing to learn, that she is passionate, and he does want her to come back to the school. So I enjoyed this, and I don't know when I'll read the third book, hopefully before the end of the year, but who knows. So, the next book I read that I finished was Black Powder War, the third book in the Temeraire series. And this is a series that's set in our world historically, but it's kind of an alternate history where it's the idea of during the Napoleonic Wars, what if there were dragons? What if they had pet dragons? So our main character, Will Lawrence, is a Navy captain, and him and his crew commandeer this ship that's going to France to deliver a dragon egg to Napoleon. And they commandeer it, and of course, when you gotta get a dragon egg has to bond with a human. But what ends up happening is Lawrence accidentally bonds with the dragon. And the dragon, he decides to call the dragon Temeraire. Which I remember the first book, people were weirded out by that name, which I don't know why. I don't understand why they didn't like that name. And it's all about their adventures during the war and how they help in war. Like the first book, he goes to Scotland where he's trained to be a dragon aviator. And of course, it's not easy for him because people are prejudiced against the fact that he's a Navy guy, and he's prejudiced against them because he heard some things about the aviators. But it's all about their training and how eventually they become friends with the aviators, and he kind of becomes part of the team. And the second one, they go to China because the Chinese decide they want to reclaim Temeraire because he's one of theirs originally, and they have a different viewpoint of how to raise dragons, and Temeraire kind of starts to like how they treat dragons, and it's all about, it kind of shakes up their relationship just a bit, because it's like, Lawrence is not wanting to take this from Temeraire, and if he wants to see Temeraire happy, he cares about Temeraire, and Temeraire wants to please Lawrence, but he's also tempted to, he likes how he's treated in China with respect. And so it kind of shakens up their relationship. And then by the third book, they receive a missive that they must go to Istanbul because there are 3 dragon eggs. But of course, when they get there with their guide, they cannot easily obtain these dragon's eggs because the Sultan will not give up the dragon eggs because he refuses to give them up. So they have to decide if they're going to steal the dragon eggs or if they're going to continue to try to persuade the Sultan to give them the dragon eggs. And then eventually they go to Prussia because they have to they have to help the Prussian army defeat the French army. And this one has a lot more battle scenes, a lot more fighting scenes. It's not as much characters talking and stuff like that like the second one. So if you did not like the second one, keep going with the third one. Because the third one is very fun and more thrilling. We get to see more types of dragons in this one. Now, there aren't as many major characters, main new characters. I did like the guy. I thought he was very interesting. And I don't know if he's going to come back in the series or not. I hope he does because I kind of liked him. And I understand his reaction to Lawrence. And his standoffishness and not being a trustworthy character and trustworthy person. I thought that was very interesting. And of course I loved Temeraire. He's such a sweetie. He's like a puppy dog, but but he's also very curious and interested, and he's very highly intelligent, and he's trying so hard to fight for the rights of dragons, because like I said, in the second book, he starts to see how dragons are treated in China, and realizes that he wants that for his kind, but they're in the middle of a war, and it's not change, like I said when I talked about The Merciful Crow, change is not easy to overcome, and it's a bit of a struggle, and Temeraire has to resign himself to the fact that they can't change anything that much right now. The dragons and the human soldiers have to work together and form a compromise. So that means the dragons have to cooperate and, be willing to work for the humans again. And it's also, Lawrence and his friends are kind of biased because it's like a rite of passage for these soldiers to take on a dragon egg. So if the dragons are free and independent, they won't be able to do that anymore because the dragons will not want to bond with a human. But then at the same time, these dragons they're highly intelligent creatures. Yes, they're beasts and they're big and they can spout fire and they're dangerous, but they're not stupid. They're highly intelligent and they have emotions and feelings and it is, so they deserve that. They deserve their independence, but like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. And I like seeing the different types of dragons, and certain dragons are susceptible to Temeraire's idea when he tries to tell them about and convert them to the idea of being free and independent of humans. But then some of them are basically content with the way things are. And it kind of reminds me of the idea of the soldier, being very obedient and not talking back to their general, but then someone saying, trying to get in the way of that. And I'm kind of thinking of Buffy season 4, where Buffy ends up dating Riley Finn, who's a soldier. He's very obedient and no questions asked. And actually, that also reminds me of on Supernatural, Dean with their dad. No questions asked, no. But then you have the other, Buffy, or in the case of Supernatural, Sam, who questions things and is has more compassion and understanding and realizes things are not that simple. Things are not black and white. So it provides a very interesting dynamic looking at Temeraire's interaction with these dragons that are like that, have that mentality of loyalty and being obedient, and how he tries to get them to join, the fight for draconian independence. So after that one, and then I think it's the second to the last book that I read was, let me check my list. Okay, yep. Second to the last book was Enchante, which this is a book I got a while back, a couple years ago, and I finally read it this year, this month. And this is about a girl. This is set during the reign of Louis the 16th and his wife Marie Antoinette, and the French. I think it would be the French Revolution. I don't know. Actually, no, I think the French Revolution is separate. Like this is decades before the French, like a decade before the French Revolution, I think. And in this world, there is magic. And our main character, Camille, she has magic she inherited from her mother, where she can alter objects. Oh, again, I forgot. I read this book for the dragon taming seminar because it's about a dragon. And I figured it might be a good idea if I'm going to be a magi zoologist to learn about dragons. So in this world, like I said, she can change objects however she wants them to be. And her and her sister and brother are in very financial dire straits. They're very poor, not living a very good life. And her older brother, let me see if they say her name in his name. Her older brother, it doesn't say in here, is basically gambling away what they have left. He's even taking some of their things and selling them for money, or gambling, or giving them to someone. And so Camille realizes she has to do something about this. She has to change their lives, her and her sister's life, and help her escape their brother, who was basically using them and abusing them. So Camille discovers a magic that her mom didn't want her to know about. That involves is called glamour, and it involves you have to give your blood so you can alter your physical appearance and change yourself. And so Camille discovers this magic and decides to use it and goes undercover in the Palace of Versailles and join the gambling there. And it's all about her experience there and the dangers of it all, and how she becomes friends with the nobles and, again, the aristocrats, I should say. And again, just realizes that things are not black and white, and she learns that a lot of these people, there are a lot of magicians there, and magic is dangerous, and you sacrifice some of yourself to use it. There's also a bit of romance as she falls in love with the balloon aerialist, who turns out to also be a noble himself, which provides a bit of conflict for Camille, because not only is she pretending to be someone else, she doesn't trust the aristocrats, and she is afraid of them and thinks that they're all bad, and she's complaining because she's starting to realize that things are not. Again, she's realized things are not as black and white as they seem, and that and she's wanting to know why he would lie to her, why he would pretend he wouldn't admit to being an aristocrat. And there's also. So I thought the magic system was really cool. The idea of, changing things, altering the appearance of something, or your own looks. And I also liked that there was a consequence. That these people, to alter your looks, you couldn't just magically change yourself. There was a price. You had to give a little bit of yourself to the magic. That you had to give, like, blood and stuff like, and it would basically age you if you use too much of it. And if, you stop using it, it will drain you of your life force. And I loved all the characters were really great and fun and charming, and I'm always a sucker for this kind of story set in this kind of setting. There's an obvious reason. A lot of people love France and the French culture. There's something about France that is magical and whimsical and fascinating. I think, for a lot of people. And there's a romanticism to the country that a lot of people like. And it's a big tourist attraction in this modern world. A lot of people love to go there to visit the country, check out all the famous sites. You know, there's the obvious well-known sites like the Notre Dame Cathedral, the Eiffel Tower, which is so sad what happened to the Notre Dame Cathedral. You know, with that fire and everything, all because of some dumb mistake. And I do believe they're trying to rebuild it, but it won't be the same. Because it won't be the same architecture. It will be and then there's the Louvre where the Mona Lisa is, which Mona Lisa is kind of a disappointment. It's kind of small. And it's kind of hard because if you go at certain times, you know, be part of it, it's kind of hard to see it because there's so many people that want to clamoring to see it. So, and actually, I want to go back there because the one time we went back in 2007 during spring break, I fell asleep when I first got there at the museum, the Louvre. Because, of course, you know, you're traveling overnight and there's this whole new flight system, you know, there's the changing of I can't think of the word. Like, the time change. It's a little off-putting when you go from one country to another. I also like the artist market where my sister was living. She was near there. There's also, but anyway, and of course a lot of those landmarks were here. But like I said, the magic doesn't kind of fit this world because, especially back in this time, a lot of the French people were wearing like face paint and wigs and stuff and trying to just change their appearances and, you know, disguise certain things, like because of the bad hygiene and stuff, and because they didn't have the same kind of hygiene we have today. And you know, it was kind of like getting Botox, except for without the surgery. You know, you kept changing your looks so that you would look more appealing and putting on makeup and stuff. And like, you know, I remember Tara and I talking about this, that how guys are the ones who wore makeup first, and they wore heels first too in France. Not because they were gay or feminine, but because it was what was considered the trend back then. I mean, just so you could disguise the fact that you were aging. So it's very, and I feel like the whole idea of the glamour thing, it fits that whole idea of how people were back then, how people thought. And they put value on looks and just trying to, like, keep themselves from aging. Like, even though that was inevitable. I mean, no one's immortal, as far as we know, anyway. I like Camille as a main. She was a little bit different than some of the main characters I had read lately. I mean, she was still fighting for social justice, but she wasn't as, like, all feisty and hot-tempered and stuff as some of these characters are, so she was a little different, a little more passive. And another plus is, again, I was once again pleased to read a story about sisters and the bond these two sisters have and their contrasting way of looking at things. Like, her younger sister, Sophie, sees, like, she was told by their mother how she was given a sugar-coated versions of the noble life and the aristocratic life and being part of that. And then their brother tries to push her into marrying a rich guy or marrying an aristocrat so that she'll be well taken care of financially. And it's not because he cares about her, it's because he's probably thinking, I can steal this guy's money to pay off my debts. And her sister is very naive, but at the same time, she makes a good point. Not all of them are as bad as they seem, or at least in this world, not all of them are bad. I mean, in the real world, who knows what the people are really like. But I mean, a lot of times they do that in a way. When we have the rich people versus the poor people, they kind of want to show that not all the rich people are bad. Some rich people are very considerate and caring and would help these people. But society's brainwashed them to think a certain way. So I had a good time with this, and as this blurb says, it was very enchanting. Enchanté. I love that word, enchanté. And then the last book I read was an audiobook that I listened to, and that was Origin by Dan Brown. It has been a while since I've listened to Dan Brown, or read Dan Brown's Robert Langdon series. I have not read Knew that was coming. Had a feeling it would come up at some point. I had read the whole, at least I read Angels and Demons, The Da Vinci Code, The Lost Symbol, and I think that's all of them. So really, I've read only 3. 4 now. Because I have not listened to or read Inferno. And I have thought about listening to it. Instead of buying it. Because Dan Brown is the type of author with the way this series is set up. Now, I have not read his other 2 books, Digital Fortress or Deception Point. Okay, I do not know why. It is so, I know I've talked about this before, how annoying it is when, because I have all iProducts now, so, I get a message, I'll see the text via my computer, but then all of a sudden, a few seconds later, I hear the noise of my phone, because it's also an iProduct. And it's not, it loses the whole ring, the tones that I have to alert me are not as cute anymore. They're annoying, because I constantly hear them. Because, when you get into conversation with your friends, you just keep talking. But anyway, sorry, that distracted me for a second. So those are not part of the Robert Langdon series, so they would probably be a little different. But the Robert Langdon series is always is very repetitive, and it has a very similar formula each time. It's just, the only difference is it's usually in a different country, and there's a different mystery to solve, but they always have to do with art, science, religion, and and history. So Robert Langdon is a Harvard professor, a symbologist, and I'm trying to ignore that. He is a professor at Harvard, and in this case, a former student of his, Edmund Kirsch, who is an atheist, is giving a presentation at the Guggenheim Museum in Spain. Now, I don't know if it takes place in Barcelona first, because we travel all over Spain. But I don't know if it takes place in Barcelona or if they go to Barcelona. No, actually, I think his house is in Madrid, but it takes place in Barcelona. I don't know. It's a little confusing. I don't remember, and I do not have the book on hand with me. So, he's giving a presentation at the Guggenheim in Spain, because his presentation is going to change the world of religion and science. And he even goes to a group of religious men and shows them his presentation. And they do not like it. They don't trust it. They think that something's wrong here. They're very apprehensive, and they're a little hesitant to let Edmund go about this. But then he kind of tricks them and presents just his presentation before he said he would do it. He would show it. And Langdon is invited to this presentation. And then just as Kirsch is about to get to the final point in what he's discovered, which is who we are and where we come from. And where we come from and where we're going. And just as he's about to get to that point, he gets shot. He gets killed. And because Robert Langdon was part of the presentation without his consent, and he's his friend, the royal I can't remember what they called them. The police force in this community suspects Robert Langdon, and he ends up teaming up with the woman Ambra Vidal, who is the museum director and partnered with Kirsch about this presentation, and she also happens to be the fiance of the prince. And it might turn out to be her fault what happened to Edmund, because she ended up not realizing she invited the guy who they believe shot. The guy who shot Edmund. So the two of them are on the run, and they decide that the best way to honor Edmund, that they owe it to him to get his presentation out there and to find out and they're also kind of curious. So it's basically a race against time as they try to get to his home without getting caught and figuring out, with the help of Edmund's supercomputer, an artificial intelligence called Winston, figure out how to get access to his presentation and present it to the world. I like this. I have fun with his books. It's just, I feel like reading one after the other can be a little bit much because they're very formulaic. Like I said, they always have to do with the same thing. And it's clearly what Dan Brown is passionate about, what he cares about, which is fine. That's great. And the books are entertaining and good. They're not bad. They're good. They're very entertaining. They're thrilling. It's just, again, it gets a little repetitive. And sometimes it's boring because, you kind of can not exactly predict, but you kind of get a feel, you can kind of guess what's going to have a pretty good idea of how things are going to work out, what's going to happen. But it does pose interesting food for thought, because it's about the war between science and religion, creationist versus the Darwinist. That's what they're called. I forgot that they were called that. The Darwin, and the idea of God's existence and how God created man, or the idea of what Darwin said, which I don't remember the theory of evolution and the Big Bang theory and all that stuff. And I always think that's a very interesting debate. Now I personally do believe in God, and I lean more towards that. But I also feel like I'm an open-minded person, and I'm not like, you're wrong, you sciencey people are wrong, and, I don't feel that way at all. I think even, and it's, I'm kind of, I lean more towards that way, but I'm kind of interested in both, and I believe, and I don't, that I believe, why not, why can't both have? I know someone that is a scientist will probably explain, no, it's not possible, and magic isn't, and a lot of people believe, when it comes to thinking about God and stuff, a lot of people that are atheists think that, it's magical thinking and all that kind of stuff, so, and as I was saying, I don't want to start anything with this kind of debate, but it's just, this is what this book is about, and it was, either way, it's a very interesting look. And I'm kind of curious what Dan Brown himself thinks. I wonder if his character Robert Langdon is modeled after him in a way, modeled after the way he thinks, and maybe Robert Langdon reflects the way he thinks about religion and science. And I'm still not 100% sure what Robert Langdon thinks about it. Is he a religious man, or is he more sciencey, or maybe he's kind of in the middle somewhere. I would be curious. But, like I said, the idea of religion versus science is very interesting. Of course, there's art mixed in because, Kurt Kirsch is a fan of art, and we kind of compare Robert's, what he likes, his kind of art versus what Kirsch likes. So that is very interesting. And there is humor in this. There is some funny moments, and it does also look at the idea of artificial intelligence, because Robert Langdon is a little unnerved by Winston, but he's also impressed by him at the same time. So it's very interesting looking at how this book examines Winston and artificial intelligence, and how for some people it can be kind of creepy and a little weird, and there's that fear of, will AIs take over? And but, you can kind of understand why but at the same time, we can, some people would appreciate AIs because they, a lot of people present them as a benefit to society, because they can do things for us, and they don't have emotion, an emotional bar like we do, they are just, I hate to say it because, they're machines. So they don't have the same kind of emotional capacity we do, and they're mostly their minds. They don't have the hormones or the compassion and stuff like that. And there are moments when Winston says things that he tries to mimic human emotions, but he can't 100% do it. And there are moments where it's like, Robert Langdon is a little, uncertain because in how he delivers, how he says things and how he delivers things, and it's very he just stating facts. There's no sympathy or anything like that. There's no compassion. There's no fear there. He tries to mimic human emotions, it's not 100%. Either way, yes, they get formulaic, but they're still always interesting. And I feel like if you like that kind of stuff, you like history, and you like learning about history and religion, the war between religion and science, and if you like art, then I think you would still really enjoy these. And like I said, for me, it's kind of hard to read them. I feel like reading them one right after the other would get exhausting after a while. The beginning is a bit slow because Dan Brown takes a lot of time to set things up, and he spends a lot of individual time with each character. And a lot of those books, like his books, sometimes he'll have a chapter that's only like a page long or a paragraph long because he's just setting up the scene. Like the character's getting, the character that shoots Emmons, he's setting up, prepared to what he's thinking in that moment. Like a lot of moments in each chapter is about a lot of moments throughout the scene. And then, of course, the ending kind of drags down a little bit, too. Because he introduces a lot of characters that he has to wrap up and give closure to. So, that's the only downside is the beginning. And I was kind of feeling rushed because with Libby, I only get 1 week with each book, which is annoying to me because I don't drive. Most of the time I sit home, especially now. I'm not doing anything except for sitting at home, and the only time I leave to go anywhere is, if I go for my daily run, or walk around the neighborhood. Sometimes we'll take walks, or when I go to work. It's the only time I leave. I try to make sure I go outside and read so I can catch some sun, although I think that could potentially be bad for my skin. I don't know if you guys can tell via here, but I'm a little red around this area. So I don't listen to audiobooks. The most I will listen to an audiobook is when I go take a shower for the day or the evening. Then I'll listen to it there. It's the easiest time to listen to it. But I do try to listen to it while I'm getting ready for the day. And sometimes I will play a video and listen to an audiobook at the same time. But of course, that's a little bit of a problem. That's a bit of a flawed way of doing it because then you miss things from both. But yeah, I'm not listening to an audiobook every second of every day. And I'm reading physical books too, and not the audiobook that I'm listening to. That's not the physical book I'm reading. I'm listening to that book. So I feel like for me personally, 7 days is not enough. A week is not enough for me to get through an audiobook, especially with a book that long. I did it. And I know you can also adjust the time too, but then if you speed it up too much, then you won't really take in the story. So I try not to do that too often, but towards the end, if I get the message that my time with this book will soon expire, then I might speed up the time of the audiobook. But like I said, I had a good time with it. I'm curious if Dan Brown is gonna write any more books, or if he's done with the series and he's not gonna write any more books. Who knows? As far as I can tell, the book 5 is the last book. They have this weird thing about ending on an odd number. I don't usually like that, but that's just me, and I don't control this. So as far as let me just mention my current reads right now. I did finally start reading Warbreaker. It's about 2 sisters, in a world, they are part of the kingdoms next door to another kingdom. That's the world of color. They have magic that involves color and breaths and stuff like that. And the the king of their kingdom, their father is like, I'll send one of my daughters to their king, the god king that rules. And he decides to send his youngest, even though she was the one who was not meant to go. It was his oldest daughter. Apparently, it's his favorite, the oldest daughter. And she gets there, and it's not what it seems, and she's not exactly the God King is not as responsive to her. And her older sister is like, my sister's not prepared for this. She doesn't know how to handle the situation. And she decides to go. She's gone to the kingdom and is attempting to rescue her sister. That's as far as I got so far. I like the magic system, but I had a feeling I would. I find the whole color thing really cool. It actually kind of reminds me a little of the contrast between the two kingdoms in Woven and Moonlight, because our main character's kingdom is very simple and whites and grays and stuff like that, and then the other kingdom is much more colorful. Which it's interesting that the colorful kingdom is seen in both books is seen as the bad kingdom, and they're garish colors and broad, and they're bad, and we should be more conservative about color. So I find that very interesting that in both cases the bad kingdom is the colorful kingdom. This one I really didn't touch much. I read like a chapter where Tyrion is talking to his cousin Lancel, who, if you watch the show, he's hooking up with Cersei. He's having a sexual relationship with her. So I haven't read much of that one. And then I read 2 chapters, and the other chapter was Arya. She's still traveling. She's right now at Harrenhal, where some of her family originally owned it, but now Tywin Lannister has taken it over. So not much to say about that one. I did decide to start with this one, which was meant for a book to take place by the seaside, by the ocean, or underwater, and that refers to that is for the prompt of Defense Against the Dark Arts, and Grindylows like I said, the prompt is something like read a book that takes place by the seaside or in the water, and this one is on the Cornish coast. We have 2 main characters, which usually Kate Morton does that. She has 2 dual timelines. We have Nell and her granddaughter. Let me see. Of course, it doesn't say there. Cassandra. And her granddaughter, Cassandra. And Nell, on her 21st, I think it's her 21st birthday, she finds out from her father that she had been left at the docks in Australia, and all she had was a suitcase and a book of fairy tales, and he claimed her and took her in and raised her as her own, and then on her 21st birthday, he reveals the story to her, and it changes her relationship with her father and her siblings forever, and she is determined to find out the truth and find out who her biological family is and meet them. But then her own daughter prevents her from her selfish daughter. Like I do not like her daughter. I can't stand her. She shows up and passes her daughter Cassandra off to Nell to raise and take in. And that kind of prevents her from leaving to go to meet her family her biological family for the first time. And eventually Cassandra, when Nell passes away, Cassandra finds out about this from her aunts and decides to finish her grandmother's work and meet the biological family, and figure out what happened, the true story behind it. This was my first Kate Morton book years and years ago. I loved it, and for the longest time I considered it my favorite. I want to reread to determine if I still feel that way. And this, I think, is my 3rd reread of it. But it has been a while. It's a beautiful story. There's in the Forgotten refers. There is a garden, obviously, in the story. and it's just a really beautiful story with it is multi-perspective story, and from Olive, I think that it was her that she said that this is not her favorite because there are just too many. One of the reasons it's not her favorite is because there are just too many perspectives in it. So it can be a bit overwhelming. Now, I don't remember if that's true. I'm assuming that's true. Because so I love her books, and her writing is so beautiful. So I started that one, but I knew I was going to finish it. So, especially since it's an adult book. So it's a little bit harder to read, not as fast paced. I did, back in March, I did start The Distant Hours, which is about a mother and a daughter. And the daughter finds, the mother receives a letter from a woman who took her in, and, during the war. And she passes it off as not a big deal, but then her daughter, Edie, has suspicions about that. And she ends up finding herself at the place where her mom was taken in, and she decides to find out more about it. And she meets these three spinsters who run the house, who own the house, and we get their backstory and what their connection to Edie's mom is, while at the same time Edie's trying to figure it all out herself. Again, this is really great. This is very, inspired by Gothic literature a lot of times with the setting and everything. It's set during World War II mostly, or the past story is set during World War II. I think the present day story is early 2000s. And the last book I have read a lot recently is this one, Something Wonderful, which is a nonfiction on the history of Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein II and the dynamic duo they became. They wrote plays like The King and I, The Sound of Music, South Pacific, Oklahoma. Hammerstein wrote Showboat with a different guy. But it's a very interesting look. It's a very interesting look at their partnership and the difficulties they had to face and how hard it is in the business of Broadway, because it's just like Hollywood. So just a little bit different because it's, we're dealing with plays. And, of course, we talk about the actors they've worked with in this one, and I just finished reading the chapter on the creation of South Pacific. We also learned about some of their flops, like Allegra, how that one was a controversial production. It was interesting, but it was also it did not translate as well, and not everybody loved it. And you get snippets of some of their lyrics, and it's so interesting. And if you like musical theater, if you're a musical theater fan, I definitely would recommend reading this. Unless you're just not a fan of these guys, it's very informative and interesting to look at that world, the world of Broadway. It's just like Hollywood, except for like I said, we're dealing with plays instead of movies. So that's what's going on. So that is my sum up of what I read so far. So I've read a lot of fantasy books this month. So that is okay, so that's 3 audiobooks plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus 6 plus 6 actual physical books. So 6 plus 11, 6 plus 3 is 6. I think that's 9. I think I've read 9 this year. This month. Last month I read 11, so this month I've read, I think it's 9. If I counted right. So yeah, and I'm already excited about the part 2 of this readathon, which is the Newts readathon. I can't wait to see what that is because, of course, she'll come up with different prompts for each one, and that's gonna be really interesting and fun. I'm probably gonna continue pursuing some of the other, like, Ancient Ruins is read a book with a heart on the cover, so I'm probably gonna go with. So I'm probably going in May. I will probably start this one and go ahead and finish it. Plus, I just need to finish this. But see, there's a heart balloon on the cover of this one. This is the third book and the final book in this trilogy, so I figure I'm going to go ahead and read this one in May. And those, like I said, applies to Ancient Ruins. So even though it's all over, I'm still going to... and then I'm going to go ahead and finish The Forgotten Garden by Kate Moore. I'm going to work on that one. But I also need to read The Distant Hours. But even if I don't read even if I don't finish The Forgotten Garden this month, I can read it in June as well. But yeah, so anyway, I'm already, like I said, I was continuing to think about what I'm gonna read in May. I'm already thinking about that. Like I said, one of the books will probably be this one. But I want to throw in a couple books that aren't fantasy related, or and of course I'm gonna finish Something's Wonderful because I want to read another nonfiction because so far I've only read one nonfiction this year, so I want to include another one. I want to continue to grow my nonfiction reading, and once if you pick the right book and the right topic, then it's not that hard to read nonfiction. It's just stating facts. So it's like you don't have to necessarily, it's not like you have to absorb and understand and comprehend a story. I mean, there is a sense of comprehension involved because, but if you're interested in the topic, you really care about, then you won't be too lost. And like I said, it's just stating the facts about the topic. And in the case of Something Wonderful, the topic is musical theater in this particular duo. And it's not something confusing for me. I mean, maybe when they talk about money and all that, making money and all of that might be a little confusing, but other than that, it's a really, I'm getting through it quickly, just like I got through the other nonfiction books I've read. But anyway, so that is the summary of what I read in April. I'm looking forward to May. And like I said, I want to read some other non-fantasy books as well in May. Now I'm done with the readathon, and May is my birthday month, so who knows what book. So anyway, if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already, and I will let you know. I will click the bell notifications below to see when I post new videos. And I hope you're enjoying your reading, and I will talk to y'all later. Alright, bye!